Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
Friday morning, end of double game week. Didn't even want to log in and look at my score, to be honest with you.
Makes two of us, I think.
Yeah, I switched off after the West Ham game yesterday, so I didn't even really pay much attention to the evening games. Logged on later to find Rudiger hadn't played. I thought, rubbish, captain's not played.
You did know, because I told you he wasn't in the team.
Oh, yeah, earlier when I did my Sky thing, but that was disappointing. But Mount returned for me, so I got something out of that.
So it took you up to a monster score this week of
63.
Bloody
Kilman,
hell.
where was Kilman yesterday?
Dropped. Or rested. We'll come back onto that.
Yeah, Ben Foster, despite having a double game week, a massive... I mean, De Gea's 2 points is more than Foster's 1 point after Foster's double game week. It's a disappointing week, to be honest with you. I missed everybody that returned big, and my captain only played one game.
You've not missed everybody. Mason Mount's a great return.
Yeah, that's the only one, really.
And he was part of a hit for you, right? Or part of your transfer anyway.
I just made one move to get Mason Mount in.
And who did you bring him in for? I can't remember, actually, James.
Gallagher.
Oh, there you go. That worked out, didn't it?
Yeah.
Right, okay, fine. I mean, it was... Well, I say horrendous for me. It's not horrendous. I finished on 78 -4, which is not good. There were plenty of amazing scores out there this week because of some amazing returnees. I mean, Matt Cash, highest FPL score in a game week this decade. The highest score since Mo Salah's 4-point haul against Watford back in that game week 29 fixture in 17-18 in season 1 of Planet FPL. So 29-pointer for Matty Cash. Bloody hell. Everybody who's sitting there with Luca Dean listening to this is going, shut up, James. That's okay. I'll tell you about my own problems. So I went into last night technically with 7 players to go and a captaincy. So effective 8 players. Rudiger, right. So that's wipes me down to 6 players. Ben Foster, 0 points. This was like a master of how to dodge points. Ben Foster, 0 points. Rafinha, 1 point. Jacob Ramsey, 3 points. Yay. Ryan Fraser, 2. Armando Broya, 2. Oh, I did get a clean sheet from Connor Cody, 6. How have I managed to dodge all them points,
It's
mate?
mad.
With, to be honest, only 1 player from all the different teams playing basically and stuff. I've had coverage. 1 from each in Southampton, Newcastle. 1 from each in Villa, Leeds. 1 each from Wolves, Watford, and I should have had obviously a captain involvement in the Chelsea game. And I can hear everybody who listened to us on Black Box. Shout out to our mate Az. We really enjoyed that Wednesday night. How many times did me and you say, yeah, we went Rudiger because it was safe?
Safe. Oh, mate, there's nothing safe about it.
The reality is,
unfortunately, nothing
quite
safe
clearly,
about it.
when one of the top sides are playing Norwich, nothing's safe because that is now Liverpool, Chelsea and Man City have rotated even players that never get rotated, Trent, Cancelo and Antonio Rudiger against Norwich. So there might be a lesson in that for something that's possibly further down the road. But no complaints. Obviously, Reece James, we've learned since Monday's recording, did have an injury. He came off towards the end of the Burnley fixture. But obviously, and he himself came out with quotes saying, it's fine, I'll be okay for Thursday. Now there's a range of reports that suggest he's out from anything between 5 days and 3 weeks, basically. So I think it's probably a sell, though, isn't it? There is a case, I think, for those free hitting either this week or game week 30 that you could maybe hold on to it. But I think he's a sell for most people, whereas... yourself and I, Suj, Rudiger will come back in the team on Sunday, won't he? And he's there. Okay, it's only a single game day fixture, but I fancy him for a clean sheet at the weekend. So at least we've still got that. But not a good week for you and I at all. So what are we going to do about it, Suj?
I'm going to take a -4.
Okay.
I'm going to sell Max Kilman for Andy Robertson, and I'm going to be selling Jared Bowen for Deki Kulu.
Give me your ginger from Sweden.
I would also like to sell Trossard for Saka, but I can't afford it. So I'm just going to let that one go and play Trossard. We talked about him with Az as well.
You're free hitting in 30, right? Should
Yes.
probably clarify that for the listeners.
Yes.
And so am I. I've now decided on a -8, having watched
Pickford.
Leeds last... No.
Pickford.
No. Ironically, I went into the week saying I knew that I was going to buy Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
I watched Matt Doherty Monday night, the magnificent Matt Doherty, of course. We'll talk about him in a bit. And then kind of, I don't know, mate. What am I saving here? Like nearly 3 million by going the other way. It would potentially cover game week 30 if I decide to play through game week 30, but no, I am still going to free hit in game week 30. So that Cody to Robertson is still on. That was the plan. As part of that was for -4 is I need a new goalkeeper. I need a new goalkeeper to replace David De Gea. And I've decided I'm not going to replace David De Gea at the moment. I'm just going to go in with him this weekend. The thinking behind that is there is no combination that I specifically like where I think, yeah, this is definitely better for me in game weeks 31, 32 and 34 than what I've currently got with De Gea. Plus, he is the sort of goalkeeper. I still think he's the best Manchester United asset. I do fancy Tottenham to do well tomorrow, so I don't expect anything from him. But should United win 1-0, for example, tomorrow night, he's capable of holding any time, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And am I taking a hit out for him for people like the Bravka, first part of a double away to Chelsea? Everton, it's just Everton, isn't it? Ramsdale, I think, would be the right one if I was to go and do it. But no, I'm gonna hang on with De Gea because there's two other players I'd rather get rid of. So I too, like you, I'm going to buy Kulusevski. I think reflecting on what we discussed on Black Box with Az, who's obviously a Brighton fan on Wednesday night as well, he's absolutely right in terms of do you want to sit there and wait for it? So I'm looking at it, I'm going Tottenham-Liverpool this week. It is a double game week. It's fine. But the chances are it's probably 3 points for Trossard, isn't it? It's probably a 70-pointer in a half hour or something, and it's probably 3 points. The annoying thing for me, as I discussed on that show, was I'm also looking at he's got Norwich at home in game week 31. Mm-hmm. But does he even play then? Like, it's annoying, isn't it? I spoke to you about this on one of the pods we did, I think, on Patreon last week about actually there should just be a rule against having attacking Brighton players, actually. When the going's good for them, have some defensive options. Just ignore the attacking ones. Yeah. And bar Webster, who's definitely going to be out Saturday. I don't know if he's going to be out Wednesday. They're fully fit. Everyone's fit. So you got a Welbeck, Morpay, Trossard. He can even use Modo in the game recently as like a false nine. What's my expectations really? So Trossard's going to go for Kulusevski, and I'm bringing Saka in for Rafinha as well. Mm. So his and Leeds' performance last night was pathetic, and we'll come back onto that. And it's another one I'm looking at it going, oh, it's Norwich this week. That's why I want to hold on. But actually, Leeds looks so woeful. I would not be surprised if Norwich go there and beat them on Sunday. So he's going to go. I'll be better off once I hit 31 having the Saka Kulusevski coverage as well, because obviously those who are not free hitting in game week 30 are certainly building now towards Arsenal and Tottenham coverage with the double for both now. Coverage in game week 30, decent fixtures in 31, 32 afterwards. We obviously don't know the exact layout for 33 as yet. But I'm going to want it. I'm going to need it. I think the right thing for me to do is take that -8 now and get it done. I mean, Cody, Trossard, Rafinha out for Robertson, Saka, Kulusevski. I think if I put that on the table to just about anybody, they'll say to me, yeah, do that, James. Mm. If someone else put it to me, I'd say do it. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be buying the same three players if I had 0.2 extra in the bank.
Also means I don't have to make the awkward decision between Saka and Kulusevski, which I think is a toss a coin. I'd rather have Saka this week, but I think I'd rather have Kulusevski for the little 31-32 period. So I think he's so close between the two of them. I think Adam Pritchard made a really good comment on Clash of Correspondence yesterday when he said about the idea that kind of template forming now is probably going to have Kane and Saka. And as I've already got Kane, it does feel more of a necessity for me to have Saka, I think, at the moment. It will leave me in a position come 31 where there's no money in the bank anymore once I've made that Robertson in for Cody. And wiggle room in terms of where I move might be quite awkward.
Yeah.
But then I look at the team on paper now for 31 and I could see me rolling. So happy to crack on with this.
Nice. Good. Let's cover off the games that we had since we last recorded on Monday. Starting with Spurs 5, Everton 0. I mean, we talked about it on Tottenham, and it's had quite a bit of coverage in that Everton were bad. and everybody wants to buy your right wing back.
Yeah, let's timestamp this because it doesn't. Well, I say timestamp this for those who are listening to the audio right now and are only doing it because they've tweeted me asking me about my opinion on Matt Doherty and Kulusevski and others. I'm going to do it right now so I don't have to respond to people's tweets, which are over and over again. So Spurs really good Monday. Certainly for the first 20 minutes of the second half. Otherwise, I don't think the performance was that brilliant. We just executed numerous counter-attacking transitions on Everton over and over again. They suckered into it every single time. Doherty, let's start with him, was genuinely outstanding. I'd have given him man of the match. Conte is a genius for getting something out of this fella, but he deserves credit for himself. On the talking tactics I've done for Patreon, Suj, I looked back on his performance against Wolves when Tottenham were woeful. And actually, Doherty, reflecting on that, wasn't as bad as I thought he was. So maybe something has been building for a little bit of time. If anybody wants to buy Matt Doherty at current price of 4.7 million, I'm not going to put you off. I think he's the best defensive asset right now at under 5 million in the game. Can I guarantee you that he starts both games in the double game week? No. Is he likely to? Yes. Would he probably play against West Ham in 30 as well? Yes. He probably will. He's certainly now first choice, and he's earned the right to be so. Certainly over the last two league performances against Leeds, I think that confidence gave him a massive boost. And his performance genuinely on Monday, he passed off as a footballer, Suj.
Yeah. Really
good. More aggressive in his play off the ball, more running off the ball in terms of attacking situations, getting into threatening positions. And the one that really surprised me was he was good on the ball. He was a big part of the majority of Tottenham's attacking phases in the game. Played two delightful through balls, one for Sonny when he should have scored, and then obviously the assist for Kane's first goal. Also assisted Kane's second goal, although that's more about Harry's finish, obviously, for the fifth goal. But yeah, really impressed. And if I wasn't able to go Cody to Robertson this week, bearing in mind, again, I'm free hitting in 30, I would have considered buying him. Because I think just suddenly it's dropped. And I could do that thing where I go, I don't rate him as a player. It's one game. I'm going to ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. No, actually, it's interesting. I think there is the caveat of we must say the last two games were Leeds and Everton. And they were both horrendous in both scenarios against Tottenham. And he hasn't looked an attacking threat, particularly in any other games for Tottenham. But in those last two, he certainly warranted having the shirt. There is a little bit of feeling amongst the Tottenham community at the moment that Conte doesn't want to play Doherty and Reguilon together. I'd still be extremely surprised if he don't. The reason...
Well, Sessegnon's out for a while.
Well,
now,
this is why I mentioned this. So
there's $500,000 difference between Reggie and Doherty. Reggie's going to play because Sessegnon...
You think?
Yeah. Unless he pushes Ben Davies out wide.
No. Well, the other option he could do is, and this is the disaster one, he's played Doherty at left wing back and Emerson at right wing back.
That would be so funny.
He might. There is, I think he gives a lot of protection to Reguilon when we have games in close proximity. Now, to be fair, Reguilon hasn't started the last few, so that shouldn't be an issue. It's United Saturday, Brighton Wednesday, West Ham Sunday. As we've spoken about, these problems obviously Tottenham have when they have games in really close together. But the fact we've got a midweek fixture and play Saturday and Sunday either side of that means it shouldn't be too bad. And I'd see no reason why Reguilon won't start all three games. Right now, I see no reason why Doherty won't start all three games. At this moment in time, between the two, I think I would buy Doherty. I'd make the saving. Reguilon will look absolutely nailed, but I do think there's a possibility that it could go that other way where he goes, I'll play Doherty at left wing back. Now, Doherty at left wing back generally would be a disaster, and that wouldn't appeal either. But I would expect Reguilon and Doherty to both start this Saturday. I think the counter-attacking threat they can offer can be pretty dangerous against Manchester United. There's one interesting thing about that before we move on to the attacking players. Obviously, we were on Black Box Wednesday, and we did our predictions for the correct scores in this game week. So did Az and so did Mark. And between the four of us over the Tottenham games, we didn't predict a clean sheet at all.
Yeah.
So what are we actually
hoping for?
Yeah.
Attacking returns, I guess.
But it's United and Brighton away. Are we expecting Tottenham to go and get 5-6 goals this week?
No,
I don't think so.
No.
So in terms of essential, no. I think there's a lot of people will look at it and go, well, that obviously covers me for game week 30 as well. And of course, as it stands right now, I see no reason why Doherty and Reguilon won't play all 3 games. But as I also said on Black Box on Wednesday, we have one bad result. Conte throws his toys out the pram and you can see a completely different setup/team. But at the moment, I see no reason why they won't start Saturday and the games beyond that. The offensive players, Kulusevski, fantastic again. He's only blanked once from his starts. I think it's notable that he's playing 90 minutes in all the games as well. He's fit. He doesn't look like a natural winger because he doesn't possess like blistering pace. But he's given Tottenham an air of creativity that's long been missing. He's formed a really good partnership with Doherty, which is certainly having benefits for Doherty. So Kulusevski, I said to you before I'd even seen him wear a Tottenham shirt, when we got the price, I went, that's going to be interesting at some point. And I think you have to look at it and say, most people are going to want Tottenham attacking investment, particularly if you're running through 30. And there'll be people listening to this right now who haven't got any of Kane's son, Kulusevski. And of course, you would expect Sonny at 10.8 or whatever price he is to outscore Kulusevski. But will he outscore him enough to justify the 4.5 million extra that can be used on something else, right? So I think Kulusevski is a great option. Sonny, of course, is a great option. I see people taking hits to remove Sonny and get Kane. I'm not quite in agreement with that because I actually think like United Saturday, I think could be a really nice game for Sonny, actually. But Harry would remain the priority from all the Tottenham assets at the moment. He is so bang back on it. And the forward options in this game, as we know, are rubbish. He offers good coverage. I think Vardy's injury means that he's going to be extremely highly captained in game week 30 as well, which you should be aware of. I wanted to captain Vardy in game week 30. I don't think I'd have the guts to captain a Jimenez or a Vardy. So I think Kane will be the default captain for a lot of people, despite it being a difficult fixture against West Ham, just by essentially being the only premium asset that's going to play in that week. It's him and Son, isn't it? Like, sure. I mean, I'm going to free hit in 30. I'm not going to spend all the money. I can't. It's impossible. Even if I put Kane and Son in there, if I pick the best options from all the teams, I'm comfortably still going to have some money spare. I'm also not going to spend it for the sake of it. Kane will be a big captain game week 30. You should be aware of that. I would prioritise him, but I also don't agree with people taking hits to move Son to Kane. Yeah. If you're taking hits to move, I know a few went early on Vardy, like finding the passage for Vardy to Kane. I think it's pretty straightforward. Like find a way to make that happen would be the advice.
For sure. Everton, are they going down? Sean, our correspondent, put in the Twitter questions to this pod. I'll swerve this episode, knowing that there's a kicking coming, maybe for Everton.
I turned to my dad at 2-0 and I said, we're not playing well, but we're exposing them massively on the counter-attack. Just before the second half started, I said, I think this could end 6 or 7-0 without us even trying. And as it went 5-0 after 55 minutes, I think Everton fans who may have already turned off, and I know certainly a few of them in the stadium would have been leaving, and that's really harsh for them to make that journey on a Monday night. I have sympathy with them. Probably a little bit relieved that it didn't end 7s, 8s. I think Tottenham rightly, and actually this is important going into Saturday. I was watching the game obviously live in the ground thinking, go and tear these apart, right? I think that's how you feel as a fan when you can put a big score on the board. And generally at 5-0 I did think, honestly, I thought the record score was up for grabs in terms of how easy, and I'm talking about a 9-0, just because of how easy the game was and how bad they were defensively. I think Tottenham took their foot off the pedal because
sometimes you don't embarrass.
No, I don't even think it's a case of that. I think it's a case of there's another more important game in 5 days. Why stress yourself, basically? We were very good for 20 minutes in the second half, where maybe if the 6th have gone in or so, maybe it might have continued. But the last 20 minutes or so was basically a non-event. They were woeful. I can't paint it up any different. To be honest, useless. That back four, I mean, there's probably a case there for them to completely overhaul it and just put Patterson and Mikolenko in the fullbacks, play Braithwaite. If Godfrey's back available, stick him in and just completely overhaul it, because none of them who played at started the game were good enough.
Wow.
The other night, Kenny at left back, so average. Coleman, I don't think Evertonians will feel the same. We're probably loath to criticise, but yeah, it's gone. Michael Keane, rubbish. Holgate, positionally, terrible. I mean, they kept stepping out of position and playing a high line against Tottenham, and you do that. The front three are really good now, right? They link well. They can all run in behind, even Kulusevski. You leave open ground, particularly for Sonny, right? You're gonna die. It was so bad. Midfield, Donny van der Beek, anonymous. Decore, poor. Allen. Sean said this before. He's not even really a holding midfield player. He's a decent central midfield player. Not good enough. Calvert-Lewin clearly not fit. Richarlison disinterested. Anthony Gordon tried hard, but every time he got on the ball, Tottenham just fouled him, to tell you the truth. Gordon would be the only one that'd be of interest. I have still flirted with the Pickford idea, and I was still flirting with it kind of with yesterday, because I do think on paper for the goalkeepers, I would not be surprised if Pickford is the highest scoring goalkeeper this week. But genuinely, the advice really on Everton assets would be completely avoid. They have dirty fixtures from 31 onwards. Yes, we know that there's possibly a double in 31 or 32, but are we that bothered? Gordon is the one. If Gordon facilitates for you, say you're sitting there with Vardy and you need to downgrade a Rafinha, for example. You want to go Rafinha to Gordon and Vardy to Kane or something like that, fine. No issue with that. But I wouldn't even say he's nailed, right? You've got Damari Gray to come back into the setup. And if they continue with that system, which they may not do, but you'd think Gray would come back in. Is it going to be for Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin? I think it'd probably be for Gordon. Plus, Lampard's comments after the game suggested that really he wants to play a back three at the moment, but doesn't have the centre-back personnel to be able to do it. But he might even tuck in one of the fullbacks to play as a wide centre-back, so it allows them to go and play that way, is a possibility. That means you may then be losing Gordon as well. Although I think he would have the capability to play as a wing back. Richarlison Calvert, I wouldn't go near them at the moment. No, need to see a lot more.
Norwich 1, Chelsea 3, routine. I mean, it ended up being Havertz that was the safe option from Chelsea. 26 points, not far behind Matty Cash in terms of a return for the game week. Phenomenal return.
Yeah, really good returns, obviously, from Havertz.
Is he number 9 there at Chelsea now?
He certainly is. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we spoke about this last week, that certainly he's the number one choice now. I mean, Havertz and Mount between them, what's that from the game week? 42 points? Brilliant. Like if you've obviously had Mount. Those 16, who gambled Havertz and stuff, great, brilliant. He is definitely first choice, Kai Havertz. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's favourable from an FPL perspective.
No,
because
7.8 is a price.
Presumably, it's absolutely reasonable.
Great price.
But the priority is going to be the Champions League, isn't it? Does Havertz even start on Sunday? I don't think it's a guarantee.
Probably.
I would say probably yes as well, but I don't think it's a guarantee. And all I mean by that is I don't think he's going to start Lukaku against Lille. He's still going to want a strong team to go and play for France. And I think Tuchel's comments after the game last night was even more about almost like consolidating, saying, I think there's an acceptance, Chelsea fans will agree, that title is off the table. And they're going to finish third, aren't they? It doesn't feel like a doubt about that they'll finish third. I know there's a few people think because of what's going on, and we are going to come back onto that a little later with Abramovich and stuff. They might drop to fourth or so, but they're not going to blow it and finish fifth or anything like that. So I think with Chelsea attacking assets, there's still the probability that actually in forthcoming league games we might see more of Lukaku, and Havertz might not start. Listen, if he's going to play there regularly, of course, that's now an interesting asset. And the goals, I said to you on Monday, like there hadn't been attacking returns previously. After this week, there's obviously been some good returns, but we should also remember it was Burnley and Norwich. I would not be going and buying Kai Havertz now, and he's not top of my agenda because I'm fairly certain that he will get priority in the Champions League games on the other side.
Yeah. I'm not adding to my Chelsea. Rudiger and Mason Mount play this week. Newcastle at home. I can't not play them. Single game week players. But
I think you can not play them. I mean, Newcastle are on an incredible run, aren't they?
Well, let's talk about Southampton 1, Newcastle 2.
You can't just skip Norwich completely. Stop
relegated.
it. No, but listen.
Go on.
They're not relegated if they win on Sunday. And I think they might.
Are you going to
I've changed my mind.
Any assets from
No,
Norwich?
of course I'm not going to buy any assets from Norwich. But I do just want to say they changed to a back five last night, which we shouldn't be that surprised about because when Aston Villa played really well at Chelsea in game week 4, Villa did the same. And obviously Dean Smith was in charge of Villa then. They changed to a back four and they were much better second half. To be honest, for a small period, they had Chelsea worried. It's worth saying, one of the reasons I think they really had Chelsea worried was as Piliqueta went off at half-time, and of course with the absence of Reece James, Chelsea really short in the wing-back position. So in the second half, they had Sal Niguez playing left wing-back and had Loftus-Cheek playing right wing-back. I mean, it's not great. Loftus-Cheek seems to be appearing in all sorts of different positions. But Norwich actually had Chelsea worried for a little bit, and I think they'll take some confidence out of that. And listen, suddenly, Suj, if they go to Ellen Road and win on Sunday, which if Leeds play like they did last night, then there's every chance that they will, then they're only 3 points behind Leeds. And it's not like anybody else around the bottom of the league's picking up mountains of points. So that if Norwich can win 4 or 5 games between now and the end of the season, which don't get me wrong, sounds really unlikely, then they'll stay up.
Let's see.
Anyone who does that will stay up.
Southampton 1, Newcastle 2. Second defeat in a row for Southampton, but Chris Wood, after 3 games after I said he's never going to score, finally does score.
Finally.
Floodgates going to open now, aren't they?
See his interview after the game as well, pumping his chest going. Someone asked him, the questioner asked him a question, he went, yeah, touch wood. And he touched himself. So weird. I mean, that comes across wrong, don't we? He was only touching his chest. Yes, finally a Chris Wood goal, which will be a relief to him. He looked so happy about it. And an astonishing finish for Bruno Guimaraes' winning goal. He may have come off with a knock, though, Bruno Guimaraes. Joel Linton's had an ongoing groin issue, and they did well to cope without him because, as we've been saying, he's been great for the last few months, Joel Linton, in his kind of reborn midfield position. Eddie Howe had special praise for the performance of Joe Willock during the game. I think they rode their luck at certain stages of the game, and I've not seen a lot of it, to be very honest with you. But that is now 21 points in 9 games for Newcastle. They are safe.
Oh, they've been safe for a little while. But
I think they're only 6 points off of 9th, and they're 10 points clear of the relegation zone. They're done. Honestly, they've got 31 points.
They've had a great run.
The way the bottom 5 are playing, 31 points might even be enough. And that's, by the way, that's why I won't rule even like Norwich out at the moment. If you can put a couple of back-to-back wins together, suddenly you're back in the game. So, well done to Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe has to take all the credit for the work that he's doing now. Really good. The performance of the team have meant they've not even had to kind of force Guimaraes into the team ahead of schedule. And the last couple they've done without St. Maximin as well, who... Illness is still the issue. Eddie Howe couldn't confirm after the game last night if he'd be back for Chelsea or not. This is always the problem with St. Maximin. He's prone to missing games, isn't he?
All the time.
Always the problem. He's the sort of player, I think, if ever you owned him in a double game week, even if you knew he'd played the first one, you could have no guarantee he'd be fit for the second one.
Yeah, agreed.
It always feels like with him. But it just shows they've had some key players missing. They've coped with this period without Trippier, came in, did really well. Interestingly, Emil Kraft came off towards the end of the game, and it's thought it's probably just cramp, and that might be the case with Guimaraes as well. Now, I've spoken about how rewarding players who are playing well, and I think that's why Kraft stayed in the team. Manquillo is probably the better player. He's 3.9. Keep your eyes on it. If something comes out today and says Kraft's out, he's done his calf or something, Manquillo will go in the team and then probably stay in it at 3.9. And they're performing to a level at the moment where that's great.
Yeah.
He would suddenly become the best Johnson Amati very suddenly, I think. But a difficult one unless you get confirmation of that. I'll be holding Fraser through this week. Another double. Nothing last night, but obviously pleased for the return from Saturday. On Saints, and this will probably lead you in nicely maybe to the next game. What game are you going to cover next? Are you going to do Wolves, aren't you? All right, unfortunate. But last Thursday's clash of correspondence was Villa Southampton, with Lee Jackson and Matt Samuel. And I said on that podcast, we were talking about, could Southampton, because of the run they were on, could they make this kind of real late push for European qualification? And how Villa's win at Brighton had kind of eased any fears they had looking over their shoulder. And the way we were judging the two teams, like there was a sizable difference between them. As I pointed out on that podcast, if Southampton lost twice and Villa lost twice, Villa would be above them. And that's what's happened.
Villa won twice, you mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so Villa beat Saints and they've beat Leeds, and obviously Saints have lost to Newcastle. You might get Southampton go on a lull now, although they walk into a very nice fixture this weekend. There's your segue, Suj.
Well, Wolves 4, Watford 0. Ben Foster, double game week, 1 point.
Yeah, great.
Really disappointing. But Wolves finally back to keeping a clean sheet. And Max Kilman didn't play. Only Wolves defensive
Max
assets.
Kilman, to be fair, we discussed it on Monday, and we did say we could see no reason why he'd be left out. Those who were suggesting that he would be, absolutely correct. Well done. What I didn't know was, and I don't know if you know this, his mother's Ukrainian.
Yes, I did know.
Ah, well, you could have told me, couldn't you?
Well,
I didn't know.
He's still been playing through, you know.
Yes, but there was a suggestion not a suggestion that that's why they'd missed out, but certainly Large spoke about him last night after the victory and said, look, we felt like we needed to give him a break. He's played all the games this season. The fixture probably enabled them to feel like they could give him that break. However, there's now a catch and a problem for owners. Now, many of you probably won't start him this week anyway, so I suggest waiting and getting the information before you bomb him out, particularly if you're running through game week 30, might be a good thing to do. Because Willy Boddy played last night. He's appeared. He's alive. And apparently
he was
played,
really good before.
Apparently played well, from what everybody's saying. So it might stick. But Large's comments did say after the game, he said, Kilman will definitely come back in the team. Now, caveat that by saying he didn't say he'll definitely come back in this weekend, but he did say, look, he'll get himself back in the team. We've given him a little break. But that break could extend to be 3-4 game weeks or so, which is useless for you if you own him in FPL. But he could come back in this weekend. He could come back in for Bolly, because Bolly's been out for so long and had so many injury problems, they may think, we don't want to play him twice inside 3 days. The kick-off at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Or they might decide, right, it's Sais's turn for a break, maybe. But the one that won't change is Cody. Johnny apparently played really well at right wing back. All the Wolves guys on the Wolves channel on our Patreon Slack raving about Johnny's performance last night, how good it was to see him look fit and able. I think the level
4.5, he'd be a great asset.
I don't think you can yet.
But
and do you know what? It's maybe even another one where, again, do they risk him again so soon afterwards? But further down the line, Wolves, for a while on the other side of the international break, are only going to be playing weekend games. So then consistently he can play. So it might be one to come back to for next week, for game week 30. Maybe Johnny might suddenly be of interest. Aït-Nouri played really well as well. The problem with him is, again, he's playing again Sunday. He's going to put Marcao in. We don't really know. Brilliant goal from Neves. And nice to see Jimenez score. And it's worth saying, when I reflect on Tottenham and the way they've played in the last 2 league games, that's Wolves' next 2 fixtures. Everton away, Leeds at home. And where I was originally of the thinking that I probably wouldn't have any Wolves attacking assets on free hit in game week 30, I'm now thinking I probably will.
Yeah,
because of the opponent.
Neto didn't get any returns yesterday, but Podence did.
Rested.
Jimenez did. So have you got any kind of preference on who yet? Or
I don't think anybody's buying Wolves this week. It's probably more a case of, do those who own hold on. So there'll be Jimenez owners out there. I think he's probably, if you're going through game week 30, he's a hold. If you're not going through game week 30, he's possibly a sell. But then what assets appeal? Like someone says, I'm going Jimenez to Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin. No. That's a no for me, a big no right now. Would you go to Maupay instead? I'm talking about forwards with doubles this week. No. Take a chance on Bamford already? No. In sort of prep for game week 30, you wouldn't. So I think Jimenez probably a hold. And I think for those who were certainly intending on benching Kilman this week anyway, best thing to do is hold. Get the information from Sunday and then make your assessment for game week 30. Because if you're running through to game week 30, you do not want to move those players right now.
Yep.
For those who are free hitting, it's easy to maybe say, okay, I'll move it on. But otherwise, get the information from Sunday. Because if Kilman starts Sunday, I'm fairly certain then he'll start against Leeds, which is probably the game that you're more worried about.
So leaky Leeds, who conceded so many goals, we thought might have tightened it up with only a 1-0 defeat at the weekend, have gone and let in 3 at home.
That performance was alarming. It's probably Leeds' worst performance that I've seen since they came up, purely because at least in other games, even when they got battered, they've been fun. They've had a go and stuff.
Is it because Jesse Marsh is trying to implement a new system and the players are not yet
Possibly.
ready?
I think there's multiple problems for them. One is the well-documented Calvin Phillips stat, which everyone's done to death now, and they obviously are clearly missing him. I think what's happened is the players, a lot of the players, and we've spoken about this even when they've been really good, Suj, a lot of those players are championship players. They're not good enough, really, right? And it's the system and the way they played and the enthusiasm and energy that they put into games set them out as a differential to every other team in this league. How many times have I said to you, if you do not prepare properly for Bielsa's Leeds United, it doesn't matter who you are, you can get done over.
Yep.
And that includes the top sides in this league, a rare opponent where everyone had to prepare properly. On what I saw last night, Leeds United are just another average team in this league, and that's going to be heartbreaking for Leeds fans to hear based on what we discussed last Tuesday and the connection that they obviously felt with Bielsa. A few of the Leeds patrons we have put on the Leeds channel last night on Slack that actually even before kickoff, the atmosphere in the ground didn't feel right. Those football supporters feel like they've had a massive part of their identity withdrawn from them. So one of the things that even when they be getting slapped, one of the things Leeds fans could obviously have pride in was the fact, well, no one else plays like us. The style we play, we're always enjoyable. Everyone enjoys watching us. That last night got almost worse with every passing minute. They were a little bit better in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the second half. But other than that, Villa were the better side all the way through. They were more threatening, played the better football. They were better defensively. Leeds completely ran out of ideas. Through that team, Aylin for me is not a centre-back. Covers fine, he's not a centre-back. Strack's not good enough. Robin Koch is not a midfield player. That's completely not working. Adam Forshaw's fine, but he's certainly no Calvin Phillips. And the front four, Harrison, James, Rodrigo, and
Rafinha.
Yeah.
Who was bad. You're ready to sell him.
Abysmal. Yeah, on what I saw last night...
they've got some good fixtures coming up on paper.
I know, you're absolutely right. And for those, obviously, again, carrying through to game week 30, if you own him, it's a more difficult sell because it's Norwich now, it's Wolves 30. Their fixtures, even in 31, 32, are good. But I am, and we spoke about this with us Wednesday, right? What do I base my decisions on? Well, I see with my eyes more than anything, right?
Of course.
He looks like he does not want to be there. He's either decided this new system doesn't work. And to be fair, he wasn't playing well the last few games for Bielsa either, right? His head's somewhere else. For whatever reason, his head's somewhere else. Now, can Rafinha suddenly turn a switch and go mental against Norwich at the weekend? Yes. But I don't see anything in this team that can provide the correct service for him at the moment. He doesn't look interested enough in it. That is huge alarm bells, the way that they played under a new manager in the first home game, because the towel was thrown in. You know, when you watch games sometimes, and obviously Villa scored a couple of quick goals to make it 2-0, 3-0, and they were disastrous goals that Leeds conceded. Poor Firpo went off injured near the end. I mean, he had an absolute shocker at left back, which would feel bad saying now that he's gone off injured. But once it went 3-0, you watched the last 10 minutes and you thought, if Villa want to, this could end 6 or 7-0 as well. Like, they were in a bad way getting done over at Ellen Road like that. And the effort that you always see off them, no matter what, it wasn't there. It was cold. And are they in a better position now, Leeds, than they were in 2 weeks ago? No. That game against Norwich on Sunday is massive. And if you wanted me to predict it right now on what I saw last night, I think they could get beat.
Very difficult for Leeds. Are you adding
that bad.
Are you adding any Villa? Are you tempted at all? They've been sharing around the returns other than Coutinho. I think Coutinho still probably stands out as head and shoulders the best one to go for.
Absolutely. I mean, a little bit fortunate to get the goal on this occasion, but then as we discussed on Monday, he could have got a lot more against Southampton, right? Great. I mean, Jesse Marsh said, we've got a plan for Coutinho. Well, I watched the game from start to finish, and I don't know what that plan was because it didn't work. He's linking great. I think the fact that he's got two willing runners ahead of him in terms of Ings and Watkins are both good forwards in terms of running channels, finding space in between fullbacks and centre-backs. They're both good at it. The link between that triangle, a reverse triangle if you want to call it, of that front three is really good at the moment. It's promising. It's been a really good couple of weeks for Villa since they changed that system. They've won, 2-0 at Brighton, they beat Southampton 4-0 and won 3-0 at Leeds in this adjusted system. So won 9-0 the last three games.
Yeah,
they're certainly going to give you a difficult game on Sunday, Suj. Do you go and buy Villa assets this week? No, I don't. I don't think you do. If you want Coutinho, I think you're probably waiting one more week. My decision will be, do I go with him on free hit? One person I probably will go with on free hit is Matty Cash, who it's easy to say in hindsight because the returns, but just on watching it, looks a far better FPL asset at the moment than Luca Dean. Forget the Dean's on set pieces and stuff like that. Cash looks like he's going to really bomb onto the box and goes for it every time. I think, by the way, there might be some serious interest in him from the top six or so, like Arsenal potentially looking for a right back. Tottenham might be. I tell you what, these clubs will do much worse than look at Matty Cash. Really rate him as a player. I think I'd even though it's Arsenal on free hit for me, I'd possibly chance him and go, what's the, if they won 1-0, could he be the man that gets the return and gets the 14-15 pointer? I think, yeah, he could be. So Cash would be the one that is of definite interest defensively. Again, you're not buying this week. Ramsey stays for me at the moment. I probably wouldn't be looking at Ings or Watkins at the moment. I think if you look at 30, for free hitters 30, if people go with a front three, most people are going to end up going, I think, with Kane, Jimenez now, because obviously he's back in the team, and Leeds, and then Daka or Iheanacho, whichever looks better this time next week, basically. It's probably most people's front three on a free hit.
Yes, indeed.
It was very good. Interesting. Chambers stayed in at centre-back as well.
And popped up with the goal.
Great
as
goal.
well.
Yeah, brilliant goal.
But yeah, not one that I'm looking at the moment. I can't add Leeds defensive. I don't have the space for them at the moment. But free hit for sure. Matty Cash is definitely going to be quite highly owned. What else do we need to cover off, James? We've obviously got plenty of questions on Twitter that we can get to as well.
Chelsea. You need to drop some knowledge bombs, mate.
I don't have many knowledge bombs on the Abramovich situation right now, but it's a big problem for Chelsea, isn't it?
Give us a summary of what we know. You're going to explain this better in terms of, I think, what might happen next. So, go on.
So Chelsea have been sanctioned, right? Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned.
Yep.
And Chelsea have been given, which basically means all his assets are frozen. Depending on the business, they have to stop operating. He can't buy or sell any of his assets that he has. Like there was talk in the media that he had £200 million worth of property in London that he was trying to sell. Well, he can't sell it now. He can't benefit in any way financially from anything to do with anything he owns in this country right now. And that obviously includes Chelsea. But Chelsea, being that they're a football club and have a responsibility to the community and the rest of the Premier League and so on, have been given a special licence to continue to operate. But it's a fairly restrictive licence, and the knock-on effect, depending on how long this goes on for, could be pretty catastrophic for Chelsea. So they're still allowed to play games. They're still allowed to function as a football club, fulfill all of their fixtures, but they can't sell tickets to games anymore. So unless it's a pre-sold ticket, i.e. a season ticket or away tickets that have already been sold, they can't sell any more tickets. I heard they've got 26,000 season ticket holders at the Bridge.
That would sound about right.
And the capacity is 38?
42, I think.
42. So it's going to be half empty.
No, this weekend it won't be.
No, because pre-sold.
Probably it's already sold out, so it should be a full capacity. Moving forward,
it will be half empty. Should they go through in the Champions League, those tickets have not been sold and are not included as part of your season ticket, so cannot be sold.
I would imagine the Brentford game in Game Week 31 will still have a very large crowd, probably 7/8 full, I would guess.
But after that is when it will start winning.
After that, then you're looking at season ticket holders only, as it stands, with no away fans. I presume if they go through in the Champions League, I presume effectively if this is not resolved by the time they have a quarter-final, then nobody will
fans
be in the
at all.
ground.
And
behind closed doors.
In addition to that, obviously no hospitality. Like they make plenty of money selling the corporate seats and the posh seats as well.
Do you think
they can't sell those?
This is a really, really weird solution. But do you think they could use Wembley or something?
No.
For the quarter-final, for example. I mean, Tottenham did, didn't they? And just obviously not take any of the revenue from it, and then at least that's a way around them having fans in the ground.
Fans.
If say the FA took responsibility for it or something,
potentially. I mean, it's a small way away, so let's see where we get to. At the moment, all we know is
because UEFA aren't going to want. I mean, we've obviously gone through this long period of behind closed doors football. I doubt UEFA want their Champions League spectacle to be behind closed doors either, right?
No.
I mean, imagine if they draw City or Liverpool or Real Madrid and it's behind closed doors. It's not we went through it last year, but now there's an option not to. I wonder if that's something that might be on the table. I know a few people have said that they think, and it's worth saying, this license they've been given can be amended.
Yep.
There's good news and bad news in that. The bad news is the things they have been given now, like they can spend £500,000, I think, on
per home game
in terms of things you don't think about in terms of costs, like policing,
and all that
security,
kind of
stewarding, catering staff, etc., etc. They can spend all £500,000 on that. The real issue would become if say, an amendment to the license meant that got taken away, then literally you could not, even for the fans who've paid for the tickets, you can't have football fans at the moment with no stewarding, no police and nothing like that. And if they're not allowed to expend money, then what you're doing, expecting these people, the police aren't going to turn up for free, are they?
No.
So that could be amended that sort of way. But there is some hope, I think, for Chelsea fans, and they're obviously the ones who are feeling obviously the harshness of this most, because I reflect on that and think, how would it be for me if this suddenly happened to Tottenham and I can't attend the games? You know, I felt emotionally not going through the COVID period and stuff, hated it, and it's not Chelsea fans' fault that they can't go to games. There is some hope that there might be some talks. Obviously, I forget the name of the gentleman from the Supporters Trust, but I saw an interview with him yesterday. He spoke so well in terms of understanding the whole priority at the moment being with Ukraine. He spoke about the potential idea of an uprising in terms of fan ownership even, which would be incredible. This could be something that has a knock-on effect for many other clubs, like something, and really interestingly, he spoke about kind of the fabric of Chelsea Football Club in terms of, you know, where it plays, the badge and all that being far more important than Chelsea as a kind of global force of world football. And that, from the Chelsea fans I know, that's exactly what I'm hearing. The most important thing is that next season, even if they do have to have a massive sell-off of players, which I don't think is quite going to be the case actually, that it's most important that their football team still exists and they can go and support their football team. Those who've kind of latched on to Chelsea's glory over the last 20 years might feel differently about that. But I think the people with the club at heart who go regularly, that seems to be the opinion of how they feel. There is some hope that this ticket arrangement might be amended as part of, you know, the license agreement can move. Is it in anybody's interest at the moment to deny football fans going to football matches? They've not done anything wrong. The football fans haven't, have they?
No, but they have ultimately they're the collateral damage, and the FA and the government and whoever's imposing sanctions are hoping that pressure makes people change their behaviour.
Could you put something in place that says, okay, this happens and you can still have your running costs, etc., which would be no different to what they've got, right? But you cannot have the gate receipts. The gate receipts gets donated to the FA, a charity, or whatever.
Well, see, this is the interesting thing, and people are very sceptical about what Abramovich has said about selling the club and what's going to happen to the proceeds. But he said he doesn't want any of the money from the sale of the club. If there's any net proceeds. So at that point, you may as well just give the keys over to the government or the FA.
Well, isn't that what, basically the football club's run by the government right now, isn't it?
Well, pretty much. So give the keys over and say, just wire me a check for whatever's left over once you've sold the club. And then he has no control and no ownership. Because if you own something but you don't want any of the money from the proceeds of it, well, then do you really own it anymore? Right? He's not going to benefit from it financially. The skepticism is, right, how much of his own debt and how much of his own money and how much of his own IOUs is he going to pay back before we talk about net proceeds that are what's going to be distributed he might pay himself back loads of money, and the government might decide they don't want to do that. So that's definitely one area of concern. But they're just going to end up having to potentially take the club. We'll see.
What would happen in the case that Abramovich had obviously put his valuation of Chelsea of 3 billion, right? And he said he would write off the 1.5 billion of money was owed, right? If he completely gets thrown out of the football club, and let's say the sanctioning is removed in 6 months, let's say the football club's already turned over, do you think he could turn around and go, I didn't get a penny for this football club, I want my 1.5 billion? What happens?
He could.
That's them. If that happens, that's them finished, isn't it?
But I think the problem is that's them finished. They could descend into quite a difficult situation very quickly, because at the moment the reports are that they've got between 16 and 17 million pounds in the bank.
Oh, did you find this out? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what is reported. So I've heard 17 and I've heard 16. So let's assume it's somewhere in between. Their wage bill weekly is 28 million. So Abramovich has been plugging the gap for ages for Chelsea. Yeah. Everyone's very aware that he has to put money in regularly, and he's got money, but he can't put money in now. So that's problem number one. They don't have enough cash in the bank to pay all of their wages. So what's going to happen with that? I haven't seen any resolution to it.
They probably do, because the money's still going to come in through the gate receipts. The money's still going to come in.
They're not selling any new tickets.
No,
now.
I get that. But listen, and this is why football fans get...
They won't make enough money from selling hot dogs.
I disagree. I don't think this is an immediate, catastrophic concern where Chelsea have 16 million in the bank, the wages cost 28 million, Chelsea run out of money next week. That's not what's happening here.
The bank will lend the money, or Abramovich will be allowed to put some in or something.
I don't think there's going to be any lending. I'm saying that I think Chelsea probably have reserves to the extent of...
an overdraft.
No, the broadcasting money is still going to be coming in, or has already been in. So the broadcasting money will generally come probably in a lump sum, like once a year. They'll already get that for this year or so, right? And then there's probably solidarity payments, I think, are made on top, depending on how many times you're shown on TV, etc. Now, Chelsea will probably budget that they're going to be on TV probably 28 or 29 of their 38 games in any case. So that's not going to be any different. So it's probably already budgeted in terms of gate receipts. The extra, let's say they're going to miss 15,000 from their gate receipts, and it's 50 quid a game. In the scheme of things around Chelsea's wages and stuff, it's not important, and that's why people get the hump with the higher ticket prices anyway. Because what difference does it really make if you're charging a football fan 50 quid or 80 quid? Well, to the fan, it makes a huge difference. Actually, to the football club, that 30 quid, that even for 40,000 people, don't make a huge amount of difference in terms of what their expenditure and income is elsewhere. Of course, merchandise they can't do anything with, but then generally that would be at a lower point at this kind of time of season in any case. It's not like they're releasing a new kit now or anything like that. Come the summer, when they want to do all those things, if this is still going on and no one can buy a new shirt or a new market brand, and obviously if sponsors pull out, like Free have said they've suspended their 40 million agreement with Chelsea at the moment, then that becomes a real issue. I think between now and the end of the season, I think Chelsea will be fine. I think if this goes on into the summer, it's potentially horrendous. The
other problem, apart from not having cash in the bank, is contracts with players.
That's the least of their worries.
Well, Rudiger, Christensen, Azpilicueta will be gone.
Christensen, Azpilicueta going to Barcelona, that's no news anyway.
And Rudiger Bayern Munich.
Rudiger was probably leaving.
But then they can't offer extensions to anybody. They can't sign any of the youth talent up, and they've potentially lost a bit of youth talent as well. So it's difficult for them.
I mean, what's the worst case scenario for them? So they've got Breuer back in the squad next year. They've got Gallagher back in the squad next year.
The worst case is other players decide that they don't want to be at Chelsea anymore.
But can a player even leave? So take Lukaku. Can Lukaku say I'm infringed? Lukaku signed a contract for, I don't know, 4 years. I don't know how long. Can he walk away from it?
No.
So Lukaku's trapped. If he wanted to leave, and I'm just using him as an example in terms of he would probably still be one of Chelsea's biggest sellable assets. If Lukaku went to, I don't know, he went back to Inter Milan next week, they're probably still getting 70, 80 million back or so, right? So he's obviously a very big sellable asset for them. That's obviously an issue where they can't bring any money in. How long do you think this lasts? Because I think that's what's key to what happens to Chelsea.
I'm going to give a very vague answer. I think before the end of this season, it will be resolved. How long it lasts, I don't know. But I do think before the end of this season, we will know what's happening.
Do you think
Chelsea will be sold?
Do you
obviously.
think this could be amended where Chelsea goes back to being? I mean, it's worth saying for those who don't understand the gravity of the situation with Chelsea, they were given a license that permitted them to play football last night. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, essentially under the government law, they could have said to Chelsea, "Right, you're done.
Shut the doors."
Yeah. So and they could turn around and say that. Now, there's no suggestion, by the way.
A few triple game weeks at the end of the season. Yeah,
but it could just be season over, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no suggestion that it's going to get that strong, and that's what's happened. And essentially, they've penalised Abramovich enough, and all the noises yesterday were that nobody wants Chelsea Football Club to fold or anything like that. How long this lasts, presumably, depends on how long Putin continues to keep being a dickhead, right?
Well, 15 days in, there's no sign that he's going to claw it back now. I think what may happen is that the owners of directors, probably Abramovich won't be doing this himself, will do a deal with the FA for the terms of the sale of the club. I.e., if we sell the club for this price and Abramovich takes this much money out because that's his loan, and the rest of the proceeds go to whatever charity, can we sell the football club? And they'll probably...
Surely Abramovich can't take a penny now. If the government, if it comes out that the government let that man take even a penny out of that football club as it stands right now, that's huge.
But I also think then they can't force him to sell it for nothing. As in, they can't force him to sell it.
But that's essentially what they are doing,
so
isn't
now
it?
it's kind of a free situation. Well, if that's the case where they're saying, we're going to sell it and you're going to get nothing, you may as well just give them the keys now
A
and
sale
away.
of the football club could still happen. And I think the issue would be, and it does appear like there are still loads of buyers who are interested in Chelsea. Clearly, it's not going to be the asking price. When you're taking on the problems that you're going to be walking into immediately are going to be difficult. Just by freezing the football club for even a couple of days is a huge upheaval in terms of the way the financial operation runs. We believe that they've laid off staff already, Suj, which sounds horrendous, but it's also understandable if you've got people working a club shop that can't open. Unfortunately, and it is these sort of people get hurt the most. A sale can still happen, I believe, if it's facilitated by the government.
Yep.
So, but Abramovich is not going to see any of it. And this is what I mean by saying, essentially, the government runs Chelsea Football Club. For those listening, know at the moment we're not tax funding Chelsea. But it could get to that point.
If they decide that it's worth keeping up. We keep moaning about countries coming in and owning football clubs like Saudi Arabia. Well, England now owns Chelsea. Is that what we're saying we finally come to?
Well, I mean, there's a story here in terms of it's a spin-off in terms of, again, you've let the Newcastle owners come in, you've let the Manchester City owners come in. Like, these guys are all clean of everything, and particularly in the links with the Newcastle owners to what's been happening in Yemen and stuff. I can certainly understand how people feel that's double standards. How the media reports things is not something I can particularly help on that. But what's going on is obviously having a huge impact right now on Chelsea, and I struggle to see how it's going to change if the situation doesn't change in Ukraine and Russia. And I think if it carries on and goes into the summer, then I think that's when Chelsea are a real problem, where they may have to let people go for free because they can't afford to pay their wages. That's at that point, then we're saying Lukaku's stuck. If Chelsea can't afford to pay Lukaku's wages, then there's a chance then that Chelsea are in breach of Lukaku's contract and he can potentially walk away. And then you might get a mass exodus and they are literally left with whatever's left. Which, I mean, it really could fold like a pack of cards. I don't think it will. I think reports yesterday of this is the end of Chelsea and stuff like that as even a top-tier football club. I think slow down. Let's see how this unfolds over the next couple of weeks. It's, from an FPL perspective, has no impact on what's happening at the moment. I think, by the way, Thomas Tuchel is handling himself magnificently well. Every interview he comes across better and better in terms of he's saying all the right things for both Chelsea fans and I think for neutrals. And he's been hung out to dry. You know, it would be nice to see Bruce Buck or Marina What's-Her-Face come out and take some of the pressure off the manager who's having to deal with the same questions over and over again. He's a manager of the football team. I think it's the people higher up at Chelsea should come out and stand in front of a camera and give some, particularly for the Chelsea fans at the moment, some reassurance. And I realise that's a bit restricted, but it's Tuchel's having to do everything at the moment. I think he's doing a fantastic job. One irony of it from a football perspective is through the whole Abramovich era, they've changed managers constantly, right? They might even be stuck with him, and that might not be a bad thing, you know.
No, of course. There was a lot of talk that Manchester United should try and break the bank to get Tuchel out of Chelsea.
It was something that Jamie Carragher suggested yesterday. But do you know the funniest one I saw yesterday, right? It's this, because I obviously interact with a lot of Tottenham stuff. One of these clickbait Tottenham websites put yesterday, this has made me laugh, that Tottenham have submitted a bid for Reece James. Even Nico laughed.
Yeah,
right. There's a couple of major issues right out. One, if Reece James leaves Chelsea, I think he'll probably have his pick of any football club in the world. I don't suppose he wants to go and play for Tottenham.
Agreed.
Two, who's submitting a bid when Chelsea ain't going to receive no money? So what's
the fax machine's not plugged in anymore at Chelsea.
Exactly. Who are you? You know, is the email link even still working?
Unbelievable.
There is a lot of listeners who will have no sympathy whatsoever for Chelsea Football Club, and I understand that. They're not my favourite football club in the world. Everybody knows that, but I have mass sympathy with the Chelsea fans who attend football matches at the moment. The limbo you're in, I obviously don't. I don't literally understand your pain, but I feel for you at the moment, and you'll be going through a tough period. I know there was a lot of singing of Abramovich's name again at Norwich last night, and I do understand even still why some are doing it. It's probably not helping your situation.
Not at all.
Probably just leave it be.
Right, we're going to get onto some Twitter questions, James. It's the end of the week, so normally I would say to you, tell everybody what else they got to look forward to, but not a huge amount, but there is obviously your deadline stream tomorrow.
Me and Suj know what we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to more red arrows this week because we know there's going to be triple captainers, going to be wild carders, going to be bench boosters. So we're at a disadvantage again this week, Suj, especially when we're starting with hits by the looks of it as well. What we got?
Right. Do you want to do, the question is, do you want to do football questions? Or FPL?
I think let's do a few FPL ones of teams we haven't covered, maybe if there are any in there.
Well, you've got Bundesliga managers. We talked about Aston Villa assets. He says, is Coutinho worth it? Selling Coutinho, sorry.
Selling?
Yeah, a popular transfer this week will be either selling Coutinho or Rafinha for Kulusevski. It's got to be Rafinha for Kulusevski, surely. Yeah. With West Ham having just travelled back from Spain. Good, all right performance yesterday. We should touch on it briefly, but I can't bring myself to accept that a 1-0 defeat away at Sevilla was a good outcome when...
I don't think it's necessarily a bad outcome.
Yeah, I get it. When they had so many players missing and we had a number of chances where we could have scored, it feels
You're also missing one of your best players in Bowen, right?
So... Yeah, that's true. And Bonner, but obviously that's long term. But Rakitic getting injured in the warm-up, that was a touch.
Did it help?
Well, we still lost, but we could have lost by more. But yeah, selling Coutinho before he's playing West Ham this week is a no for me. I think Rafinha's the one. I think based on James's eye test, Rafinha's the one as well.
I mean, yeah, look, Coutinho is in much better form at the moment. He's playing in a better team at the moment. If you're fixture heavy, then no, the immediate fixtures don't look better. I mean, if you're running through Norwich and Wolves, obviously looks better than West Ham and Arsenal, for example. But there is a sense of feeling, I feel, with this adapted system that in any game that Villa perform well, there's a chance that he will, and he'll return. He's a superstar footballer, isn't he? It's just a case of finding it. I heard Villa are not going to kind of commit to signing him till the end of the season. I think they should just get that done. To be honest, before someone, I don't know if it's a first option or it's a mandatory purchase. If it's not mandatory, Villa should get that deal done because the others have now gone, okay, yeah, he's still got it. He's a super talent, and I think you'll enjoy owning him. If it's a choice to sell in between the two, yes, I would sell Rafinha. I think even, to be honest, I think Coutinho for many people might even be benchable this week, which I don't hate. I'm going to be benching like Breuer and Weghorst most probably. So, I would not be binning Coutinho at the moment. If you were doing kind of what I'm doing, getting Kulusevski and Saka, for example, because of the doubles, yeah, fine, but... No, I'd probably hold on to Coutinho at the moment.
Who would you bench out of Breuer and Weghorst if you could only bench one?
I would bench Weghorst.
Really? You think Breuer, Watford has become more attractive? I was originally going to bench Breuer and play Weghorst. I thought Burnley are going to have some joy at Brentford.
Breuer is suspected that when he came off last night might have been a knock, but then if he's not, the fact that I think he was withdrawn early is only a positive for the weekend. Watford just conceded 4 goals to a team that don't really score goals, right? Sounds like it could have been more last night as well at Molineux. So, yeah, it would be Breuer. Plus, it looks like Ben Mee's still going to be out for Burnley, which, as I said, I think Brentford win then with Ben Mee out.
Java wants to know what the biggest shock would be. Norwich staying up or Everton going down? I think at this stage, Everton could quite easily slip in and go down. So Norwich staying up would be more of a surprise.
It would still be Norwich staying up because I think all of us still, and I don't think they'll stay up, all of us have written them off twice, basically. That kind of mini revival where actually, they've got close again. Then you've seen them since, you go, no, they're definitely not good enough. And to be fair, I'm sorry to the Norwich listeners that they're not good enough. It doesn't mean that, like I said, if they can win maybe even 4 games between now and the end of the season, then honestly, they would maybe stay up. And there are some fixtures that are winnable for them, including that game on Sunday. I think Everton are going to be all right because I think they've got decent home fixtures left. I think they have firepower in the likes of Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, Gray coming back. And I think that will be the difference at the end that means that they'll be okay. Everton getting relegated does not bear thinking about for Evertonian fans because of the financial situation that they're in. There was some speculation a couple of days ago they might be facing a points deduction. I'd be astonished if that got inserted into this season. But should Everton stay up by a point or two, everyone's going back to court again. Quite possibly. It depends on the financial results from Everton, which we're expecting pretty much any time. They should have been out about a month ago, really.
Tropical FPL says, if you had to eat one frozen meal per week, what would you choose? Are we defrosting and microwaving this
That's
meal?
what I'm thinking. I'll just have like spaghetti bolognese or something.
Choice. A cheeky chicken curry, chili con carne, whatever.
Chips.
I'm not bothered.
Whatever.
But if it has to stay frozen...
Microchips. Is it microchips?
If it has to stay
McCain's.
frozen, McCain's microwave chips. I'm not sure if those are frozen or just chilled, but if it has to stay frozen, then ice cream. Simple.
Yeah, we don't want to live on that just every day, do you?
Once per week.
I mean, my son Harry would, without a doubt. Ice cream! He'd just eat that for breakfast, lunch and dinner every day if he could. Nice.
That's kind of a wrap. We'll cover this episode off. Before we started recording, I had a random message, and anybody that has stayed with the pod this long can join along for the ride. So we have a cleaner at the office here where we record the studio, and we've got office space and whatever else. She comes once a week, right? Petya.
Chelsea don't.
She's a nutter.
Sorry.
She's a really good cleaner. Anyway, she's telling my wife this morning that she is cleaning Christian Eriksen's house next week.
Okay.
She does quite a bit of work in Richmond. So she also cleans Christian Norgard's
Can you get on
house.
with the we've been invited round for a drink? Or?
No, I haven't put an ask in yet. And she also cleans David Raya's house. So she cleans a few Brentford players' houses. What should the ask be? Like, I got to ask her for something. Go get like an Eriksen shirt. Or would you rather have Norgard invited onto the pod? Like, I can ask for something.
Yeah, any of them.
The question is what? I can't ask for here's multiple choice. Do one of these things.
Well, start aim and get Christian Eriksen, and then
come on the pod.
And work your way down
to come on the pod.
Whatever. Go and have a beer with him. Whatever.
Christian Eriksen to commit to one season long, once a week.
You've got
appearance on the greatest fantasy podcast in the world.
You've got to sell the whole Tottenham gig, haven't you, as well, right? With me.
Yeah, maybe we'll just get a 1 hour interview reminiscing.
And then if it's not Eriksen, don't sell the Tottenham gig.
Yeah, if anybody's got any good suggestions on what the ask should be, whack it in the comments on the Twitter
Get
and the
anything,
post.
sign shirt, whatever. We'll auction it.
Let's see.
Whatever.
Should I try and...
Nico laughs. Should we not auction it?
Yeah.
We have to just give it away.
Yeah. Let's see.
Send the proceedings to Ukraine. There you go. We're committed.
Don't put an exclamation why, but just whack it in the comments on the tweet when James shares the podcast. What your ask would be that I've got to let the cleaner who's going to go to Christian Eriksen's house next week find him and ask him for. 3 points is not a good answer. Other than that, good luck this weekend. Deadline is tomorrow, 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock even.
Indeed. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Good luck this game week. Cue music, please, man child.